Good morning, everyone. My name is Marian Phillips. I am the chair of the Max Data Council, and I am very happy to have you all here for our Max Minutes on the latest IT industry trends from the ARC, Georgia Power, and the Metro Atlanta Chamber. I am actually going to be serving as your board host, your moderator, and one of the speakers. So wearing a lot of hats this morning, but I am excited for the opportunity. So first, I want to say a special thank you to our anchors. Without you all and your support for the fantastic Max organization, we would not be able to do all of the great work that we are doing today. So special shout out to all of our anchors and all that you do. Thank you. So taking off my board hat and putting on my moderator hat, again, thank you all so much for being with us this morning to hear about IT industry trends. That's actually brought to you by the Max Data Council. So we were having a meeting last month, actually, and got a suggestion from one of our fellow members that they had heard a Max Minutes about the IT industry, and that an update would be kind of perfect timing to really understand, the evolution of the IT industry here in Atlanta, and then some of the data around what's happening right now in the ecosystem. So the 3 M's of economic development research, Madi, Mike, and Marian have stepped up to give you guys an IT industry overview. So to introduce our speakers this morning, you really have the privilege of hearing from more so Madi and Mike, but really some really research heavyweights in the economic development sphere. Madi Shields is the director of research at the Metro Atlanta Chamber. She and I actually met 7 years ago, I want to say, at Georgia Tech, getting a master's of city and regional planning. Mike Carnathan is the manager of research and analytics at the Atlanta Regional Commission. His name might be familiar as he was our previous Max Data Council chair. And I'm very fortunate that he has stayed around on the council to be able to give me guidance and help me walk in his excellent Max Data Council footsteps. And then again, I am Marian Phillips. I am the senior research analyst at Georgia Power in their community and economic development department. Also want to say we will be taking questions at the end of our presentation. So feel free to put those in the chat as well as the Q&A, and we will get to those at the very end. So who is ready to see some data and charts and graphs about IT? I know I am. So in the last 10 years, the Metro Atlanta region's tech industry has totally blown up. And honestly, that has not gone unnoticed by companies, other cities, as well as the media in general. So what you're seeing here is a sample of articles that Madi actually pulled from me. I'm really talking about the technology from all of the success that we've had really over the last 10 years. And what's cool about this is really with the exception of one of these, it's all really come since earlier this year. So it's a conversation that's continuing to happen about how impressive our IT industry is. So to just take a sample of these, we've been talking about our corporate diversity, our unicorns, Airbnb's announcement. But the one I really want to point out for you all is the Silicon Valley article there that I thought wasn't particularly interesting because we've been compared a lot to Silicon Valley, being referred to as the Silicon Valley of the East Coast. And actually, we have started to, in a way, overtake them in a lot of ways because we are being able to recruit their talent to Atlanta because the people out there are tired of the high cost of living and are able to move to Atlanta to find those same companies and those same jobs, just in a different and potentially better location. The map at the bottom is just a sample of some companies that we have been able to recruit. And to take a little bit deeper of a dive into major technology announcements, and this is just a sample since, I believe, 2018, some of the largest technology announcements that the Metro Atlanta area has seen. Google 2,500 job expansion announced earlier this year. I'm sure many of you all heard about the Microsoft announcement last year. That's about 1,500 jobs that are going on the west side in the Grove Park neighborhood. BlackRock and ThyssenKrupp are 2 large companies that are putting innovation and IT operations here in Atlanta. You've also got big name tech companies that I'm sure you hear on a daily basis, like Salesforce, Zillow, Airbnb, all companies that have located new locations here in Atlanta because they want to be a part of the exciting tech ecosystem that we have going on. So why are we doing so well? What are the keys to Atlanta's technology success? I feel like almost got carried away when I was making this list because I just kept thinking of more and more different things that could go on it. But as Brenda Robbins used to say, or still says, actually, she's one of our project managers at Georgia Power. She says the Atlanta region is younger, more diverse, and more educated than the nation as a whole. And that's actually true of the tech industry as well. We also have a growing labor market, as well as a number of job opportunities. You all saw that previous slide. We have a lot of jobs that have been announced here, and we're going to need very talented people to fill those jobs. So a lot of job opportunities there. And one of the ways that we're going to do that, besides importing talent, is through our world-class education system. And that's actually where the folks in this room really come in, because you're an important piece of making this happen for us. The colleges and the universities play a huge part, of course. Technical colleges, their ability to be agile and really pivot to the changing demands of the technology industry has been huge for us. And we're especially seeing that around cybersecurity. And then workforce development programs, being able to partner directly with companies and really understand their technology needs and how they can better be met. We also already have a strong technology ecosystem, and Maddie's really going to get into that and show you some really impressive data around the incredible growth since 2010, but even before then, of technology companies locating here. So not only do we have those kind of mainstays, we have the announcements, but we also have a strong innovation and startup culture here that has a lot of technology companies and support at all levels of the ecosystem. We're also a top location for corporate innovation centers. So we have a lot of headquarter locations here. The Fortune list just came out 2 days ago. So we're excited to see that we are continuing to be strong on the Fortune 500s. And those companies that are already here are locating their innovation centers, as well as other companies seeing that innovation that's coming out of Atlanta and wanting to put their innovation center here too. And that's creating strong strong corporate R&D activity, as well as the R&D activity around academia and our world-class colleges and universities. And finally, there's this intangible that I'm going to call corporate connection. So in Atlanta with corporations, the community impact really matters. And this is something that really hit home for Microsoft. This is a rendering of their new office in Grove Park and what it could potentially look like. And this is a quote that I found from an article that came out recently about they're deciding to put such a massive campus in Atlanta. And one of my favorite parts of this quote is it says, the biggest question today is not what Atlanta can do to support Microsoft, it's what Microsoft can do to support Atlanta. And I think that's very true of the corporate culture here. There's an expectation that when you locate in Atlanta, you're going to be a part of the fabric, and you're going to make sure that you do everything you can to contribute to Atlanta's success, as well as making it a better place. So we are happy to have Microsoft here so that they can continue on that legacy. Another piece of our success is our diversity, not only in the technology industry, but just as a whole. And that's something that's really coming to the forefront right now in economic development. And the companies that are locating like Airbnb really are pinpointing that as one of the reasons that they chose Atlanta for a technology operation. And here is a quote really citing this, talking about the education infrastructure and how we have such strong educational institutions committed specifically to supporting communities of color. Some stats around this: Metro Atlanta has 52% more minority tech workers, as well as 20% more female technology workers as well. We're also graduating, as this article cites, very diverse talent, as well as having a strong network and resources to be able to support them. Google feels similarly about their technology workforce. As you can see here, they've been around since 2001. We just announced their massive expansion, and that they're really proud of their high retention rate of their Black employees and the higher engagement levels that they're seeing as well. And that's something that Atlanta as a whole is very proud of as well. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Maddie to take a deeper dive into some of the data around our technology ecosystem. Take it away, Maddie.
Thank you. Like Marion said, I'm Madi Shields from the Metro Atlanta Chamber, and I'm just going to build off that kind of why Atlanta momentum that Marion was describing. So here are a few just recent rankings from this year and last year showing our region's tech strengths. And you can see that we rank highly for tech growth in general, but we rank especially well in tech diversity. In CyberState's 2021, Atlanta was named #1 metro for tech diversity, and the same report found that Atlanta has the second largest Black tech workforce in the nation. Companies that are looking to diversify their tech workforce have been deciding to locate where the talent is. And in the Wall Street Journal article that Marion had the headline up for, there were quotes from BlackRock, Pandora, and Gong, just to name a few that stated they were able to successfully diversify their workforce by setting up in Atlanta. Next slide. So then to get a little bit into our IT cluster, so taking a look at occupational employment, I pulled these occupations from the dashboard that Mike is going to show you later. So our IT cluster in Metro Atlanta is nearly 82,000 strong, with average annual wages of about 90,000, significantly higher than Metro Atlanta's overall average income, but lower than competitor tech regions. So places like Seattle, San Francisco, and San Jose see average annual wages in this cluster about 30,000 more than Metro Atlanta. And then you'll also see strong growth here, but we're going to go into that a bit more on the next slide. Looking at the same occupations here, the bars are employment and the dots are 5-year overall percent change in employment. So right off the bat, you'll see that the majority of the growth numbers are in the double digits. Growth in IT employment over the last 5 years was about 22%, where overall employment growth in Metro Atlanta was 4.6%. Looking at the top occupation for growth in this cluster, 33.1%, we have information security analysts, which shows the incredible demand from the growing cybersecurity industry cluster in Atlanta. And we're seeing, you know, it's a huge nationwide demand for that. And we're kind of growing our own homegrown startups and other companies that are hiring for that in Atlanta. Another thing that stands out to me is software developer employment. So they're the largest bar there. 42% of people employed in our IT cluster are in that software developer group, and they also had a 25% increase in employment over the last 5 years. Next slide. So taking a quick look at where these people work, the map on the left, we have the number of people employed by place of work in each zip code in the IT cluster, and you can already see darker colors in the northeast part of the metro. But on the right, I used location quotient to really highlight where the concentrations are. And you see that that chunk of North Fulton, Johns Creek, Alpharetta has a ton of tech employment. And then spots like the perimeter, Cobb Galleria, we see some places in Gwinnett. But I think it's interesting that down at the airport, we see a darker color, and that's because of Delta. And we see tons of tech companies grow here, but a lot of the IT employment growth is coming from corporations like Delta, Home Depot, and UPS. Not what you might think of as tech companies, but we've found that these companies, Fortune 500 companies, are locating their tech divisions and tech hubs here. And we have over 40 corporate innovation centers. So that's a huge chunk of our IT employment. So we have our growing Fortune 500 tech divisions, our Googles and Airbnbs. We have had 3 startup unicorns announced in basically the last couple of months here in Atlanta. I found over 270 new locations and expansions announcements with over 30,000 projected jobs since 2016. So we know companies are locating here for top tech talent. How are we going to keep up with this demand? Here I just use the Jobs EQ crosswalks, and the chart you're seeing are the top 10 schools for IT cluster awards across awards levels in the Atlanta CSA, so that includes Athens. What is most notable is the incredible amount of growth in awards since 2010. Overall, the region saw 140% growth in awards output in programs related to the IT cluster, and that's compared to about 11% overall. So it's incredible growth. And in this list, you'll see a mix of university and technical system schools, all showing impressive growth in award output. And I really see this as a key indicator that Metro Atlanta's higher education systems have responded in real time to this demand for tech talent. Georgia Tech, that green line shooting straight up, of course, stands out as the top producer of awards with over 325% growth since 2010. Not only have they ramped up awards, but their programs are some of the best in the nation. And they also have well-developed co-op and internship programs that we find companies are really interested in being a part of. Another standout would be Kennesaw, right there at number 2. They have been ramping up awards as well, and they have highly ranked, affordable online cybersecurity and IT programs. And what's not captured here are the many training programs in Metro Atlanta that are outside of the university and technical systems. And they're hugely important in meeting the demand and play an integral role in educating our IT workforce, filling those gaps, specific skills, and kind of upskilling people to be able to fill these positions. So here I pulled out the top programs by awards across levels so you can get a better idea of what's behind the numbers. So almost half of the awards are from either computer and information science or computer science, which is mostly 4-year and postgraduate. There are stronger certificate and 2-year awards in network and system administration and computer and information system security. And at the bottom there, I included the Jobs EQ breakdown of educational attainment for the sector, where you can see that about 75% have a bachelor's degree or higher. And from here, I'm going to pass it off to Mike to talk more about the demand side of IT in the region. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Maddie. And I think it might be a good time to pause a little bit and see if there's any questions. I know we do have one question in the chat that has come up, and it's about the location quotient and what that is. And so what a location quotient is, it's a quotient, and you're looking at the presence of jobs, presence of a jobs concentrated in one particular sector nationwide versus concentrated here. And so, and actually that's a good time to talk about this because I'm going to be talking about the location quotient demand here in Metro Atlanta. And so what Maddie's been telling you about is really the supply. What is the current snapshot of the IT industry in Metro Atlanta today? What I'm going to be focusing on is, the data is going to look similar, but really what this data is, it's demand data. It's kind of where the puck is going in terms of the IT cluster. And this is using data from Burning Glass. And what Burning Glass is it looks at, it has little computer bots that scrape every, some 3,000 different job boards for job postings. And it takes little bits of information off of each posting and aggregates it up. And so, and that is, what we would call demand. So this is what employers are looking for. And so all the information that I'm going to be sharing with you is based on what employers are putting on that job posting. And so the first thing that we're going to look at is number one, IT jobs are in demand here in Metro Atlanta. And so you'll see, and that's represented by the bars, right? So in Metro Atlanta is that green bar, and you'll see, we're up there with the San Jose's, that's Silicon Valley, with the Chicagos, with the San Franciscos, in terms of employers seeking IT talent. And those are the bars. Now the line is a location quotient, and this is really focusing on demand. And so what the location quotient does is it looks at demand, average demand across the nation, and then it looks at average demand in each of these metro areas, and then it just develops a quotient. And so you'll see in Atlanta, that orange bar is right around 1.3, which means that the demand here in Atlanta is about 30% higher than it is in the nation as a whole. Now that puts us, that means that these jobs are in very high demand here, but you'll see places like San Jose, like Silicon Valley. I mean, obviously, that's just, that's Silicon Valley. And like Marion said earlier, we're not really competing on the same space as Silicon Valley. We're doing some things a little bit better than Silicon Valley. But the point here is that yes, all the headlines that you've looked at, all the headlines that Marion shared earlier are true. Atlanta is a tech hub. It's no longer emerging. We are a tech hub. Next slide, please. Pretty please. Thank you. And so we are punching with the big boys. This is just this is the IT cluster. Those top 10 occupations that employers told us that are most important to them, as identified through the Metro Atlanta industry partnerships. And you'll see, in the year to date, we're, second to only Chicago, and Chicago is a lot bigger place than we are. And so that just gives you kind of an idea of the talent that we are going to need, because these are what employers are seeking. Next slide, please. And if you want to look at just who's hiring overall, and I know tiny little slide here, but employers with the most job openings, and this is over the past year, employers with the most job openings seeking IT talent, and you'll see a good mixture here. You'll see Deloitte, and everyone knows what Deloitte does. It's a consultant company. It's a management consultant company. You'll see companies like Capgemini, which is really a full service IT company. You see places like Home Depot. It's like a retail company. You'll see places like Fiserv, which is a fintech company, Macy's, Cox Communications, Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield. And that just lets you know just how the depth that this IT cluster reaches out to, the breadth and depth. It's not just, when you think of IT companies, it's not just a bunch of coders sitting around coding for coding's sakes. It's actually powering all sectors of our economy: retail, health, consultancy, professional business services. It really runs the gamut. And that just tells you just how important it is to cultivate talent here, because everybody, doesn't matter what sector of the economy you are, everybody, every company needs some sort of IT talent to keep up. Next slide, please. And so the experience levels that we're hiring for, again, this is based on what employers are asking for. And so what the plurality here is 3 to 5 years. But you also see, a lot of these postings are only seeking 0 to 2 years. And so what this translates into is that, well, there's a relatively low barrier to entry for these IT jobs. Yes, they are requiring bachelor's degrees, which I'll show you a little bit on the next slide. But, a significant proportion of our employers are only seeking 0 to 2 years of experience. And that's just, again, speaks to how in demand these jobs are. Next slide, please. And here's that kind of that, education plus experience. And it looks like the sweet spot here is, yes, we're asking for a bachelor's degree, and it's a bachelor's degree in 3 to 5 years experience. Plenty of postings are looking for a bachelor's degree in just 0 to 2 years experience, but that sweet spot is bachelor's and 3 to 5. And that, and that's just been a sort of a big question in the overall workforce development space is what are employers really looking for when they're asking for a bachelor's degree in IT? Are they really, is having a 4-year degree necessary to be a software developer? And that's just a raging question out there. A lot of our professionals in the workforce development space thinking that, or saying that employers are looking for that 4-year degree as some sort of a proxy to communication skills. And we're going to talk about the skills here in just a little bit. But that is just sort of an open question out there, is do we really need to be requiring a 4-year degree to access tech talent? I'm not going to answer that here. That's just an open question. So let's look at who is hiring at the entry level position. And this is, those seeking 0 to 2 years experience. And it's Home Depot. And so again, Home Depot's main focus isn't IT, it's retail. It's selling home goods. And so, they're looking for talent to help power their digital presence. But you'll see other companies like Deloitte and, the FinTech, Salesforce, things like that. Next slide. And for the skills, what you see is, so here we're sort of splitting it up into 2 types of skills. We're looking at baseline skills. And again, you're going to see communications at the top of every single list. Think about it. If you're, a senior manager at Home Depot, you probably didn't get to the senior manager level or vice president level of Home Depot based on your technology chops. So you're going to need somebody in your shop to help explain to you what's happening with your digital presence. And that's why these communication skills are so important. And that's, at least a theory out there is why so many employers are seeking a bachelor's degree for tech talent as a proxy for those communication skills. Now, if you look at specialized skills, and that's the bar chart to the right, you'll see SQL and Java. And again, that's going to be a theme throughout, no matter what kind of experience you have. And then finally, some additional software specific areas that employers are seeking, things like Linux and Oracle, Git, and GitHub. There's Git and then there's GitHub. GitHub is sort of a aggregators of Gits. Salesforce, Tableau, dashboards. So those are the type of specific software that is specific software skills being asked for. Next slide, please. And here you'll see the mid-career. So this is 3 to 8 years experience. And here, you'll see things begin to change a little bit. And here's where the Deloittes really pop up. And again, Deloitte isn't necessarily an IT company, but they really rely on IT talent to do the things that they do. Next slide. And again, the skills, same basic thing, although now Java becomes a little bit more important for those mid-career levels. And then you'll see, kind of the same basics, specific software packages that are being asked for. Although, some things like Tableau, which, really is fairly easy software to learn, you'll see that those kind of drop off at the 3 to 8 years experience level. Next slide. And then who's hiring at the late career level? And here's where you start seeing, really the technology focused companies rise to the top, the Capgeminis and the IBMs and Georgia Tech and Amazon really, looking for, people with some serious technology chops. Next slide. But again, those communication skills are still in high demand, even at this level, even for companies that focus on IT. And it's the same basic specialized skills, Java and SQL, and it's the same basic software specific areas like Git and XML and things like that. Next slide. And then we're going to finish up real quick here just by focusing on skills, because, Java was one of those skills that was asked for prominently by employers seeking IT talent. And this is just looking at just some basic information that, you know, for people with Java skills, the median salary here in Metro Atlanta is over 100,000. And again, you'll see that years of experience and education level. Yes, bachelor's degree. And again, open question, do you really need a bachelor's degree from a 4-year college to learn Java? Open question. But again, it's that sweet spot between 3 to 5 years experience plus a bachelor's degree. You'll see that Java as a skill is in very high demand. So, you know, again, you know, kids, if you're looking to get into IT, focus on Java and SQL. Next slide, and this is going to be a duplicate of a lot of what Maddie said. Oh, no, we took that out. Thank you. So anyway, before I move on to a dashboard that I wanted to show off to you, are there any questions out there? Marion, have you been monitoring the chat, or Joy?
Okay, let me see what we got. We did the location quotient one. Got that. I think so far, we do not have any questions. If anybody has any questions that come up, please feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and we will be happy to answer them. In the meantime, Mike, if you want to go ahead and show your dashboard, it'd be awesome.
I will.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Feel free to steal it from me.
Okay. Everyone see this pretty dashboard? Okay. Now this is some work that we've done with, you know, one of our key partners, really one of the key drivers of, and really thought leaders around workforce development space is Atlanta Career Rise. Everyone on this call knows who Atlanta Career Rise is. We worked with them to build a dashboard that not only focused on those high demand industry clusters, which IT is one of them, but also just really any occupation in Metro Atlanta that employs more than 1,000 people. And so here is the homepage. So you'll see it tells you a little bit about what this is. It tells you a little bit about how to use it. And then the way it works is, you know, this is Tableau. That's one of those skills that that companies were looking for in the 0 to 2 experience level. And it's really just, I mean, the reason why we like Tableau is because it's very easy to use. And so you click on a button. This is employment over time. And so this was really our first attempt at trying to understand the pandemic's effect on just overall employment levels at the sector level. And what we found was pretty startling. These high demand clusters, and you know, we've been identifying these high demand clusters for years now. And there's 5 of them, just to refresh your memory. It's advanced manufacturing, it's skilled trade, it's transportation, distribution, logistics, it's IT, which we've been talking about ad nauseum today, and it's healthcare. And so what we looked at is we looked at employment change, or our best guess at employment change. There's some factors that from Jobs EQ that complicate things, but this is probably the best picture that we have of how these employment in these clusters have changed from Q2 2019 to Q2 2020. And so we wanted to really focus on kind of the worst of the pandemic. And we figured that Q2 2020 would probably be best representative of that. And what we found is during that 1-year period, overall 8% decline in employment, which is pretty significant. But look at how these high demand clusters held up. It's pretty remarkable. I mean, advanced manufacturing, yeah, it took a hit, but it wasn't anywhere close to the hit the overall economy took. But then you look at everybody else. I mean, all these other clusters, they all gained jobs. And, you know, some of the worst economic conditions that we've had ever. Look at the IT cluster. It actually increased 4% while the overall economy was taken by 8%. And so we thought this was a very significant finding. And so that's one of the things, that's just only one of the things that you can do with this dashboard, is kind of look at how employment has changed over time. You can also look at the wage levels by cluster, and you'll see again that IT cluster is really popping out. You'll see it by age level. And again, as you would expect, IT cluster tends to skew a little bit younger. So you'll see the blue bar and the orange bar represents workforce 44 years and younger, and you'll see it has, you know, it stretches furthest to the right. So it's really a heavier concentration of young talent in the IT cluster. We can look at it by gender. And you'll see, again, there's big gender disparities in the IT cluster. This is a male-dominated field. So this is something that, you know, if we're going to put on our equity lens, this is something that we need to focus on, is get more females into the IT cluster space. Same can be said for race. You'll see the majority of, well, not quite the majority, roughly half of the talent in IT is considered to be white, but only 23 or 24% of the talent is considered to be Black. And so again, there are some equity issues that we tend to deal with in the IT cluster. You can also look at workforce qualifications. And then of course, we always have these data notes and sources. And one thing that I didn't point out is, you know, the first tab that you look at is going to be focused on just those high demand clusters. But if you wanted to get, say, wage information on any occupation, you just go to the Data Explorer part. And it will sit there and show you all occupations. So surgeons are the highest paid occupation in the region. You can do this you can do the same thing for every occupation by age. I'm not going to go through it, but just know that if you wanted to get more information about any occupation in Metro Atlanta that employs more than 1,000 people, just click on that Data Explorer tab. And so that's really all I wanted to show with this dashboard. I'm going to copy this link and put it in the chat, so anybody on this call can play with it yourself. And if you have any questions or comments, we'll try to tackle them now. So back to you, Marion.
Thanks, Mike. Love the dashboard. Any other questions for us before we give you back some time this morning? Wow, we must have done a really good job, y'all. Nobody has any questions for us?
We explained everything.
Everything, I know. We're so good. Okay, a couple more slides for y'all before we round out. Okay, share my screen. So friendly reminder to anyone on the call who is not a Max member, there are a lot of benefits to joining Max, and we highly encourage you to do so. If you are a data-minded person, we'd love for you to be a part of our Max Data Council. As you can see, we are very cool and knowledgeable people who like to talk about data. It's an excellent group of folks, and highly encourage that as well. So what's going on in Max and what's coming up? We have a Max Academy coming up. The little asterisk denotes that this is actually still a tentative date here, but the topic will be resources through the federal pipeline. So the tentative date is Wednesday, June 16th, but we will keep you posted with what that exact date and time are going to be once it all is finalized. The next Max Minutes is going to be on Friday, June 25th. And it'll be around diversity, equity, and inclusion in honor of Juneteenth. So we're still finalizing the speaker, but that's going to be the general topic. And then there is a Max Talks coming up at the end of the month on Wednesday, June 30th. And it's going to kind of follow this IT trend and be employers in the IT sector. So there is a lot to look forward to for Max. Thank you all again to our anchors for everything that you do and supporting Max. Let me